Hey everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy, and we are so excited because we are here with author K Webster. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. For Mandy and I, when you said yes, we're like, oh my God, K Webster's gonna be on with us. So we're really, really excited.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and I got your email, and at first I was like, oh, I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to talk to people. It's so awkward. And then I was like, no, I'll do it. So it really is like a special thing, because usually I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Oh, I love it. I had a little freak out moment yesterday because I got your email talking about today's chat for your Ream group. And I was like, if she got questions, and I opened it up and it said something about 1 o'clock. And I was like, no. And then I was, oh, wait a minute. No, that's not us talking. That's the group. So yeah,
you were like, oh my gosh.
I was like, wait, did I tell her the wrong time?
No, I just figured since I was up and recording, I could just do another meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
So, okay.
All right. Well, we'll just dive in with our first question. And so for people who may not be familiar with your books, what type of books do you write? Like, what are some of the tropes that you write?
Gosh, I feel like I write some of everything, but maybe people don't know me for all of the things that I write. When I say I write romance, I write it all, from every end of the spectrum and everything in between. And, some of them are lighter and sweeter, and some of them are super steamy with, less plot. And then some of them are complicated plots, but, are darker. And then some of them are totally taboo and, ban worthy. So I feel like those are the ones that get me the most attention, is like the wild and my, banned books or my super taboo books. But I do have probably close to 150 books, and only less than a handful are banned. So when you think about like that, it's like, okay, I am more than just banned books.
Exactly. And the banned books are what got the attention. Like that, I mean, Wild was the first thing I read, and then it went I went down a rabbit hole. And I read everything else.
Well, that's what I tell people. I'm like, if you can read the Wild, you can read anything of mine. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm scared to read your books. I read the Wild. And I'm like, if you read the Wild, you're okay.
You're fine. Then you're great. So Mandy,
Speaking of the Wild.
So when we first started, so I started really, Mandy's always read, but when we had kids, obviously that kind of fell by the wayside. And then I started reading again, picked up reading again, and Mandy did about a year later. And I was like, you have to read this book. Oh my gosh, you have to read this book. It's crazy. Just don't ask questions. Just do it.
You sent me the book.
I did. I sent you the book. Yes. We've been best friends for 27 years. So we've known each other since we were teenagers. So take it from there, Mandy.
Okay, so this is a spoiler if anybody's watching that has not read The Wild, and we'll put a note in here so when you can jump back in. So Jessica tells me to read the book, and I just kind of gotten back into reading. And so your book was my first taboo book that I've ever really read. And so I'm reading it and I'm like, oh. And Jessica's like, just keep reading. Just keep reading. And so I'm like, okay. So I finish it and she's like, see, it all worked out. And I'm like, Jessica, I am adopted.
I forgot that she was adopted. I knew she was adopted, and I was like, oh.
I guess that did not work out.
I guess that hits a little differently for you, huh?
Yeah. Just a touch.
Funny. That is so funny.
I always tell her that's a real testament to her mom, because I don't, and her dad, but her mom was around a lot. Her dad was a fisherman. He was gone quite often, but I was like, that's a real testament that when I've met her birth parents too, but when I think of her mom, it's her mom, because that is her mom. So I was like, that's always just this is a real testament to your mom. So,
and she's like, this story was not right for me. Okay.
Still loved it, didn't you, Mandy?
I did. I still loved it. And I'm going to go off my interview questions for just a touch and just ask if you can tell us when we're going to get back to the wild world again.
Well, I keep getting asked that. And with the wild world, it's like, I have to really be in a really good, mental place where I'm just really in the world. And because I don't ever want to force the stories. And so that's why there was a break between after the Wild went wild and it went crazy and it got banned and there was like all this stuff, I didn't want to touch it for a while because I was like, a little scary. And then I wrote 3 like a couple years later, and then I was like, okay. And then I was like, I'm probably done. But then I thought maybe I could add a little bit more. And so I kind of thought about it, but I didn't want to promise anything. And then last year I was like, I want to revisit the Wild World, and I thought about it, and then I came up with a couple more stories. And actually, I have a few more stories for other characters and storylines within that world that I do want to write, but I didn't want to just keep plowing into it because I felt like it might burn me out and the readers out. So I thought, I did 2 books and a novella last year, so that was like a good little treat. So maybe if I, maybe by next year I might revisit it and see, and then people can get excited about it again. So it's just one of those things I really have to be like in the right spot, because again, like I can't really put them on Amazon, and it's a whole different marketing baby. And like there's just different like nuts and bolts that go with it. And so I literally have to make sure everything's kind of ready for me to kind of like tackle this little passion project. And because other things might suffer in the meantime that are critical to like me making a living, and so because it's just different, it's a different way of getting readers and book sales and things like that. So I kind of have to, I don't know, I have to just kind of play my cards right with that series.
That's understandable.
Yeah, but we're ready whenever you are.
Yeah, well, and I love writing. I love these characters, and I think about them. And like, we just got some property, and we've been traipsing through the woods, and I'm like, oh, I miss my characters. But like, also with that series, like still comes negativity with the, what I write and what it's about, and people kind of like to get on their soapboxes. So I have to be like, put my big girl panties on and be like, am I ready for this?
Yeah.
That's understandable. That's got to be hard too, to have people attack you like that for no reason. And a lot of times when people go after authors like that, we've noticed that they'll even start off with, I actually haven't read the book, but like, what?
Yeah.
Then stay in your lane.
Yeah. No, that happens a lot. And so I try to like let all that kind of stuff roll off. And it's like, if they don't like the book, like I'm totally okay with that, because it's a weird story, like whatever, like I get that. But like when people start trying to attack my character and for writing these things, that like hurts, because I know like I'm just writing fiction, and I'm just writing stories that are unique and different. I just want to tell these stories. Like, it's not like I'm over here being like, how can I corrupt the world? Like I'm not thinking that. Like, I just am thinking, oh, this story came to me. This is different. I'd like to share this with people. And so yeah, it's and it hasn't been so bad like the past few years, but right after the Wild, like I had a lot of character attacks, like, oh, like you should have your children removed from your home, and I'm like, it's fiction, like,
yeah, it's fiction.
And I'm like, I don't think anybody went to Stephen King and was like, are you seriously a serial killer behind the because you write about murder and stuff. Like, I just didn't I didn't understand where the line of morality made sense for some people and not. And why is it okay in Game of Thrones to have the same kind of storylines, but my story had the same stuff and it's not okay? Like, but Game of Thrones, you're going to put it on HBO and make a movie or a series about it, and it's going to sell bazillions of dollars, but my story's not okay. Like, make that make sense for me. So a part of that's like also like the stubbornness, like the rebellious, like this quiet rebellion within me. I'm like, well, if they can do it, why can't I do it? Like, I don't like to be like ostracized just because, like, I don't know.
And I think that makes perfect sense. It feels like books in the romance genre get attacked for things that are in any other genre, and everybody seems to be okay with it. But it's when you have it in the romance genre that we're going to attack all the time.
Yeah.
And,
well, and they say it's because you're romanticizing it. I'm like, well, it's still fiction. I'm not telling you, like, this is not a how-to manual. This is not like a guide for life. Like, this is just fiction. So like, I don't understand. I mean, and technically in horror, they're romanticizing terrible things happening because it's just a different way of doing it. So I feel like it's weird. It happens in the romance industry, but not as much in the other ones.
Yeah, so true. And people just seem to forget it's fiction. It didn't really happen. Yeah. If you can't handle it, don't read it. Move on.
Yeah. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, if you've got any kind of triggers, or if you don't, if things upset you easily, don't read it. Like, I literally say, don't read it. Like, if you then go on and read it, you can't get mad that I made you read it. It's like, you took that chance. I did warn you that, and I mean, I could full out and say exactly what's in the story with the wild, but I feel like that kind of takes away some of the of it, because it's, if you just go in knowing all of the details, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just one of those stories. Like, there is heavy themes, there is, sexual violence, and there are, all of these things, but like, just know that going in. And if those things bother you, then don't attempt it. Don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, Mandy, you read Hail before I did. And she was pushing me to read it for a while. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I knew what it was. I'm like, I don't know. Like, the wild was one thing. I don't know. But when I finally, I mean, I had to wait till it was the right time for me. And then when I picked it up, I was like, oh my gosh, where's this been? Like, it was amazing. But you have to just be ready for that. And if you're not, then wait, read something else.
Yeah. Well, and that's the same thing with writing it. A lot of people are like, oh, can you write another book like Hail? I loved Hail. And I'm like, it doesn't really work like that, because my brain doesn't just think up, well, what kind of taboo stories can I write today? Like, I just all of a sudden think of, like, I might see like an injustice on TV or something in a book, and I think, oh, those people should have had a happy ending. And then I think, well, maybe they could have, and that's where it kind of starts. And that's just the way my brain works. So I can't just, like, I'm not like a short order cook. Like, okay, you guys want this? And so but with Hail, it's like with that one, I had read a story, and it was fiction, and it was siblings, and they got involved with each other, but it ended so tragically. And that's why I was like, I just was so upset about it. I was like, why do they not have a happy ending? Like, why would this person write this book and kill off the main character? Like, I was just,
I think I read that one.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. And
I cried.
Yes, me too. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to have a story that's just as emotional, but I'm going to give these people a happy ending, because that's what I like to do. I like to give them happy endings. So,
right. Well, I appreciate that, because that one for me is so much better.
Yes.
That happy ending. So, yeah. All
right. Do you have a favorite book or a favorite character that you've written?
Let's see. That is a hard question. I always have to look, because I can't even remember which books I've written, because I've written so many. I mean, of course, the wild's meaningful to me, because I feel like I had to go to war for it. And so there's always like a special place in my heart for that. But then, like, Whispers and the Roars, I had to do like a lot of research with like psychological disorders and things like that. And so that one took a long time. I really liked that one, because it was digging like really deep into the like human mind. And a lot of these, that's one of my favorite books, I think, that I've written. And like My Torin, it's an autistic hero, and it's just different. And I like those different characters that aren't perfect by the world standards, but they have their story to tell. And I mean, I guess that's kind of like all of my characters. Like, I like the broken heroes or the broken heroines, like something's pulling them down, and they're just struggling, and then they get to find life, love after that. And so, or through that, or in spite of that, and so, and then another one that I really love just is Stroke of Midnight. I like the banter between the two characters. It's very steamy, but they're very sassy to each other, and they've always got like comebacks. And I mean, the guy is like a billionaire, and he's just like a bored billionaire, and he thinks, he can do whatever he wants. And she's just like, she just goes toe to toe with him. And I just think that's cool. And she's like totally not in his, class or caliber or whatever, but she does it anyway. So I like that like dynamic of that story. So
yeah. I have to tell you, like with My Torin, when you that one, I loved it. And then you get to the end and you have the video there was a little girl, right? That things are based off of. We have friends who have an autistic child who has a hard time speaking, like really hard. And watching that, he was pretty little at the time, so we didn't fully know or understand. But after watching that, I was like, is that what it's like for him? It really kind of opened my eyes to what it could be. And every child is different who has autism, but it really helped me to see that that's probably what's going on in his mind. Like he can hear it. He's so intelligent. He just has a hard time getting it out. But it gave me a different appreciation for what his struggles are. It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah. And that was like, that's part of the fun for me is like researching stuff like that. And, you know, because like you think, oh, you know, a lot of these things get like a bad name and people, you know, just are nasty towards people with certain, you know, issues and stuff. And I like to, you know, and like I had a lot of people reach out after my tour and they're like, oh, you know, my son's autistic. This just gave me hope that maybe he could find someone one day or whatever. And so I got like a lot of really sweet messages for that. And so that's kind of like, you know, like fun for me to really like dig in and tackle like hard kind of stories or characters.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it was good. I thought it was a real eye opener. It was great. The story was great, and then just to be able to look at the character that way, it was pretty awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
So before we got on, I counted how many of your books I read, and I've read 16, and I was like, oh, wow, I've done quite a bit. And then you said that you've written over like 150, so I'm like, oh, no. So if somebody is new to your work, where would you suggest they start?
It kind of depends on how bold of a reader they are. So if they, you know, want something that's just kind of steamy and mainstream, I do send them to like Stroke of Midnight because I feel like that's a steamy like series, but it's also kind of got like boundary pushing elements that are okay for Amazon. But if you can like kind of get on board with that, you can kind of go the rest of the K Webster way. And then I send a lot of people to Whispers and the Roars because it's a standalone and they can just, you know, get like a really unique, different story. They just got to like, I always tell them, just trust me, go, you know, just read it and don't stop halfway when you feel like what is going on in the story, because it'll all like lock into place and then you'll be like, oh. And so, and then I also, I send them that one. And then like if they're new to me and they seem kind of like they don't really read like totally crazy stuff, I might send them to my Torrent because it's unique and different. And there's not a ton of sex in that book. Maybe towards the end there's a little bit, but it's more of just like the characters and the emotions. So I kind of send them over there, and that's a standalone too. And I feel like I have a lot of standalones that people can, you know, kind of like wet their feet and not like get totally invested in something and realize they don't like it. And so I don't know, that's why I like sending them to standalones. And then I've got like Notice or Dirty Ugly Toy, and they're like dark romances and they're steamy. And so a lot of people are like, oh, I just like dark, steamy stuff, and I'll send them over there. So
yeah. And you have a very gritty, dirty MC that's really good too, if they're into that. It's definitely not Toys for Tots MC. They are more than Hell's Angels, but they're good.
Yeah. They're definitely dark and filthy and kind of taboo in some of the stories, but I like those guys.
I like those guys too. And is that how you met? Because you did a podcast, I don't know if you're still doing it, with Misty Walker. Is that how you guys wrote in the same world, right? So is that how you guys met?
No, we actually met because like a long time ago, because I used to have somebody that helped me on my author page, and then she wasn't able to help anymore. And so I was like, I need somebody to help me like assist like with posts and things. But I don't trust just anybody. Like I'm very like skittish and just, I feel like, I don't know. I just don't trust too easily. And I was like, if only that Misty girl would do it, because she comments on everything and she's just so nice. And so I made a whole like sign up form. Who would like to do this? Blah, blah, blah. I'll pay you, blah, blah, blah. And the very first person to sign up was Misty. And I was like, oh, and I didn't even look at anybody else. And I was like, you're hired. And I was just like, and then, so she helped me. And then we just basically like became best friends with her helping me. And then she was like, oh, I want to start writing. And I was like, oh, you got this, you can do this. And so I kind of like did my best to try to like mentor her in the best way I could. And then she started writing, and then she started getting so busy. She was like struggling to help me too. Cause she was like, I really want to help you, Christy, but I can barely, hold it together. And so finally I was like, listen, you go do you. I will be with you 100% of the way, always. but don't feel like you need to keep helping me. And luckily around that time, my sister was starting to come over and help me. And so Holly just took over, and then me and Misty just got to be best friends and not, work. Like my husband always said, you pay her to be your best friend. Oh, what's wrong with that?
Okay, it's all good. Sometimes that happens. We met her in Vegas when we did Love in Vegas last year, and I read her for a long time before that, but we were joking around, and I was like, yeah, you send the same pins that Christy sends, and she's like, yeah, tell her mine are better.
Well, what's funny is mine, like they really, I don't have any on me right now, but they literally say K Webster's pens are the best, or I don't know if that one says
this
that.
one says crazy for K Webster's book, but this is probably an older one. So
these ones say K Webster's pens are the best, and I put that on there because I'm in a war with Misty because I told her about these pens, so we like to
I have a hoard of them. So, because every time I order, right, they come from you or they come from Misty. And I like, if my kids touch these pens, I'm like, get your hands off my pens. Like, put those away. They're not allowed. They're mom's only. I had like 2 die on me, and then I wanted to cry, even though I have a whole stash. So,
well, and you can always tell me, like, if you ever order a book, just put a little note, say, I need another stash of pens, and we'll throw some in there.
That would be awesome. They're the best pens ever. Yeah. So,
I love them, and that's what's funny is, whenever I order these pens, like sometimes that's what gets me orders on my website is my pen. And I'm like, because I just give a free pen in every order, and somebody will say, oh, my pen's out of ink, I guess I need to order another book. And I'm like, and so a lot of times I get new pens, I'll take a picture, I got new pens, and I'll just get some orders. And I'm like, okay, if that's what people in there.
Yeah, that's what it takes, right? Mandy, are you writing with yours this morning?
I don't, I have one in my purse, which I was at a meeting and somebody needed to borrow my pen, and I was like, oh, like my eyes are staying on it the whole time. I'm like, can I have my pen back, please?
Yep. Well, what's funny is
an extra pen that I don't care about, apparently.
Yeah, well, my husband has the same exact pens as me. Actually, I copied from him. So if we want to be real honest, because his company, like he has his own company, and one time I accidentally got a handful of his mixed up with mine. And I have his phone number on them, and I sent them out in packages, and I was like, I had to reach out, and I was like, if you got a pen for my husband, please don't call him.
Yeah.
Luckily it was people like I knew, like that I could just comment. It was more of a joke or anything, because I didn't think people would really call him,
but still, that's pretty funny.
I know.
Oh wow.
Yeah, be careful about that one. Yeah.
So how do you come up with your ideas?
That is really an interesting question. I think, I find inspiration like everywhere. Like I said, I could be like traipsing through the woods on the property and like think, oh, wow, this would be cool or whatever. Or I could be scrolling through Pinterest and see a picture that like makes me think, wouldn't that be cool if I had a character that looked like this or did this or, whatever. Or, even like, like I was watching Dracula with, it's been a few years, but it was like a modern version or whatever. And I can't.
Was that the one with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers?
No, it was the other one with the guy. I can't think of his name, but he's got like a little mustache, and he always has a mustache. But anyway, he was. I can't think of his name. It's a newer one. I would say newer is probably within the last like 7 years or 8 years. But anyway, or 10 years. But anyway, it was Dracula, but it inspired like my historical romance series. So it's just like the weirdest things will inspire me that have nothing to do with, so like if we're watching TV and the people are, I don't know, doing whatever, it might just trigger some kind of thing. And even my sister, she tries to give me ideas, and she says, I just give you ideas, even though you're never going to use them. But I always know that it like gets your brain rolling, and then you come up with something really cool. And she's like, I like to see what you come up with. So it's just, it's kind of hard to like pinpoint what it is. And once I get like that little spark of something, then it's like my brain kind of just zeroes in on like possibilities. Like, what could this character do? Where could they go? What challenges could they face? And then I just think about it for a long time. And because I'm always working on things. And so it's like, if I'm, walking outside or in the car, I'll just think about different variations. And what kind of roadblocks in the story I could have. And then finally, when I get it into like a space where I'm ready to work on it, then I start, kind of like plotting it out and hashing out the details of what's going to happen. So
that's funny that the Dracula book inspired your historical, because I'm sitting here going, oh, she's going to say it inspired her vampire book.
Yeah, no.
No.
No. And it was more or less the intensity between Dracula and his wife, I guess before he turned Dracula or whatever, but they were very just there. It was romantic and it was intense, and I liked that. And it was old timey, like in I don't know what era, but it was old timey. So it kind of gave me that old timey feel, and I was like, oh, I like their,
Yeah. Oh, is it that one actor? That one that's in? I think it was a movie. I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, I can't think of the name.
I can't think of his name.
It's just, but I can see his face. He's in lots of stuff. But
yeah, because for a while I had the haircut at the very end that his wife got. I was like, I need that haircut. Like I loved that haircut. It was when my hair was really short. So I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, and
Luke
they had
something, isn't it? Luke something?
Yes.
Luke. Yeah, something. Okay. It'll come to us the minute we get done. But yeah.
So I read your latest book, The Torment of Two. And when I got to the end, I was very excited to see like what was coming next. But there was no teaser for what's coming next. So I was like, wait, what is she going to be writing about? So are you able to share what you're currently working on?
Yes, I actually just finished writing a book called Waves of Fury. It's a standalone in a series, well, a world that me and my friend Lindsay wrote. And so I really like survival stories, post-apocalyptic, like end of the world. Like I just love stuff like that. And I haven't written tons of that kind of stuff, but I devour it. Like I'm obsessed with it. And so anyway, this world that me and Lindsay wrote, she's got one of the brothers and I've got one of the brothers. And the whole story arc for the series is the brothers are trying to find each other. And one lives in Texas and one lives in California, and they're trying to get to Kansas. But in my story, he's it's an MM story, and he is a like high-powered CEO, and the other guy is a food delivery guy. And anyway, there's all these like things that are happening on the earth, like because an asteroid like 50 years ago hit the moon and it damaged the moon. And so for 50 years, everybody's been claiming the world's going to end because it's messed up all of these things, but it hasn't. It's been such a slow thing that most of these people have just lived with it their whole lives, and they just kind of ignore it. It's just kind of like that one movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, like, there's an asteroid coming, everybody's just kind of like, oh, well, whatever. And that's kind of how these people are. And so, but then all of the weather happenings and earth things start happening like in rapid succession. And so he happens to be at the top of his building in the financial district in San Francisco, and the delivery guy happens to be up there delivering his food when a tsunami hits. And they basically, and it's one that the water just doesn't recede. Like they are like trapped in this building, and it's just with very few people because it's like the whole city's like flooded. And anyway, so it's a survival of story with these two guys, and they kind of are leading this group of people because they're all kind of helpless, and as they go along, they start to fall for each other, and they're on their like path to get to Kansas because inevitably he's trying to get to his brother and resolve their relationship issues with him and his brother. But anyway, it's a good story. I just finished reading through it this week, and I was just like, oh, I love it. Awesome. So it's very action packed, and people die left and right in the story, not the main characters, but it does end happily, even though the world's kind of ending. But it's just very intense and juicy, and it's got steamy parts, where they can work them in. And I don't know, it just hit all the little boxes that I like to write about. So,
and then Lindsay's story is in the same world. It's obviously stuff.
Right. Hers is, and so basically our epilogues are the brothers finding each other. Okay. And so her story, he lives in Texas. Basically my guy left Texas because he couldn't deal with their dad, and he's stayed with the dad, and they run a ranch and all this stuff. And he ends up finding, and hers is male, female. And the girl that her uncle killed their mom in a drunk driving accident. So her main character hero does not like this girl because it's a small town, and he just feels like, it was her family that did this to their family. And so there's all this animosity between them and everything. And so, but then the world starts ending, and they're having all this like fires and stuff in Texas. And so they end up getting paired up, and they start to fall in love and work through all of their issues. So I read her story too this week, and it was good.
So will they be out at the exact same time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I haven't really been talking about it much because it's with her, and we're trying to figure out all the things, but we were talking about like maybe a fall release for that one. So
I love post-apocalyptic. So I'm like, okay,
yes.
Bring them on. So.
Yes. I love them too. Like that's all literally that's all I read. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. So it's kind of sad, but we'll be prepared if something happens.
Right?
Yeah.
So is that the fall then? That will be the next time we see a new book from you?
I think so. I've got an editing date somewhere in the fall for another book. I literally since I just finished that book this week, and I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. It's the summertime, my daughter's home, and I'm getting this like bug in me to do something different. So I'm like, what am I gonna do that's different? So I'm kind of like letting my brain kind of lead the charge, because usually whenever I do that, something cool comes out of it. And so as soon as I know what I'm gonna do, I will definitely tell you guys.
All right. I loved this Shameful Secrets series. And so I was like excited to read Gemma's story, but I was also like, oh, it's over. Like it's sad to leave that family behind.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I with that world, I do plan to write more in that world, just spin-off series, so that we still get to see like those characters in like cameos and stuff, but like different characters in different situations, not with their family per se, and like the uncle that owns the lodge, like he will eventually get a story, and just like some of the like we'll still see people, and like with Tate being the local therapist, I'm gonna work him into cameos because they can go see him because they're gonna need his help. So I do want to do more with that. I just it'll be coming.
Okay. All right. That's
when I read The Tangle of Awful, I called Jessica and I'm like, wait, where is Nathan and Jamie's story? And she's like, I don't think there is one. So we like went through your backlist and we couldn't find it. And I'm like, but this is like the craziest story ever.
Well, and their story kind of gets told through the other books.
Yes.
And then the only thing with their story is because of their story, I can't really put it on Amazon because she was young when they got together. And so I'm like, I could always write a bonus type story and put it on my website. I have thought about doing something like that. But I feel like, if it happens, it happens. But I couldn't really put it out there on Amazon to sell because they'd be like, oh my gosh.
You could do it like how you did your Christmas one for your group too with Hale, because that was so good. Something like that.
It's like a little bonus story. Just go get it off my website.
Yeah, I like that idea. Their story was really interesting, and I remember telling them like, I don't think it's out there, but it should be. We read it in a heartbeat. Mandy loves huge age gaps. We both do, but she is an age gap girl. So age gap is taboo.
I love age gaps. Like that's my favorite. Like if they're, I just think they're cool.
Well, we joke because we live them, right? My husband's 14 years older than me, and yours is 12, Mandy?
Yes.
Yeah. So we joke that, we love them so much, we live them. So,
but I like to read about it in a taboo aspect. My relationship is not taboo.
No.
No. Well, it could have been taboo if y'all started out way, way earlier.
Yeah. There was somewhere, I was in a reading group one time and they were talking about age gaps or age differences. And I mentioned that my husband was 14. He's actually 13 and like a 3/4 years, but whatever, close enough to 14 years older than me. And somebody's like, oh my gosh, did he groom you? And I was like, no. I was 24 when I met him, but do you think even if he did, I would answer that question honestly? Come on.
Don't make it weird.
Don't make it weird.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is my husband is 5 years older than me, and when we got together, I was like 20, so I pretty much felt like I was kind of like a baby, and he was so much like older and worldly, even though it was only 5 years.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like, you know, like I needed that age gap. Like I need someone to kind of look after me and take care of me. You know, if I would have dated somebody that was like the same age as me and we both were fumbling through the world together, it would have been really hard. And I was like very thankful for our age gap, you know. And I was telling my daughter the other day, she said something and I said, yeah, Dad's 5 years older than me. And she was like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, so you're saying when Dad was 20, you were 15? And I was like, yeah, but we weren't together then.
Yes.
And she's like, Mom, that's gross. And I was like, not gross.
My kids think it's awesome. Like they tell everybody that there's a big age gap until they start doing math and they're like, whoa. When Dad was graduating high school, how old were you? And I'm like, we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But we didn't know each other then either. So
yeah.
I was 24.
Yeah.
So
yeah. My daughter is like totally like scandalized by the whole thing. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's not. Especially now that you're adults and you've been it's not a big deal. Yeah. So when we have an age gap in a book, there has to be a big deal. Why is it a big deal?
Yeah, I like the taboo. I mean, I like that it's taboo, and then it has to be like their love conquers this. Like their love is so great that it conquers that. That's how I kind of look at it.
That's what I like too. That's like, I like to, it's almost like them against the world. Like we're going to do whatever it takes to be together because, you know, even if we lose everything and everybody hates us and I go to jail, you know, or whatever, it's like, we still are going to be in love, you know, like I love that. Just, I don't know. To me.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you like to do in your free time?
Oh, well, I like to read. I read a lot. And, you know, I guess I read. That's literally all I do. I read. Like, I don't even get on social media at all, ever anymore, because like, it's boring to me because it's just like a waste of time. Like I would rather be reading, like listening to my audiobook. Well, I guess the thing that I do the most is I listen to my audiobook, so I'm reading, and I play my Match Factory game on my phone.
Yes.
I'm like at like almost 11,000 level because it's like a stress reliever, and I just like match those little toys and I listen to my audiobooks, and I would do this for hours and hours and hours and hours. And my husband's like, don't you get tired of that game? And I'm like, don't you get tired of your TV? Don't you get tired of the news? Like, no, there's nothing. Leave me alone.
Yeah. That's what I like to do. I put an audiobook on and then I do like diamond painting or something. And before you know it, the book's over and it's just a little monotonous thing that you do. And
because it's like you can focus on the story and you're just doing this thing and it's kind of mindless. Whereas if I try to listen to an audiobook and I'm like cleaning the house, then I start thinking about other things and I get distracted. I missed half the story. So it's like the way I can consume audiobooks and, you know, and rest. I like to rest.
We all like to rest. Yeah.
So who are some of your favorite authors or favorite books that you've read?
Oh gosh, you know, that's hard because I've read so many books and I love so many books. Literally, like most of the books I read, I love. Like I'm just one of those people that if I start to read a book and it doesn't connect with me, I just move. I just get something else. So the books that I fully read I love them all because if I made it to the end, I pretty much loved it, you know, because I don't waste my time on books that don't catch me. And so, you know, I love all kinds of stuff. And I mean, like right now I'm in a post-apocalyptic type thing and I'm reading this guy called Mark Goodwin, and his are all like more like end times, like biblical end time stuff. And so it's like very interesting. And I don't know, it's an interesting aspect of him, or for him, is he doesn't have any like cursing or any steamy stuff. So it's just it's interesting as a writer to see like how people can bring in these interesting, like really intense stories, and I like to see how they do it, you know. And so I've been listening to his audiobooks, and then he has a narrator, this old guy, and I can hardly listen to him. So I finally got one of his books on there was a woman doing it, and so I like her, and I'm like, I wish she would just narrate all the books, but you know, that's the story has a female lead, and these other ones have guy leads. So I'm like, gosh, if you could only just have these stories with somebody else narrating these.
So do you have a favorite post-apocalyptic book?
Alas, Babylon. It's old. Have you heard of it? It's by, hold on, I got it right here. It's old, and it used to be required reading back like in my grandmother's day, but it's called Alas, Babylon by Pat Frank.
Okay.
And it's basically back in I've read this book like 1,000 times. But it's an I think he wrote it in the 50s maybe, but anyway, it's bombs hits Florida, like nuclear bombs or whatever. I think they were atomic bombs, but they're hitting everywhere. And so this one guy, he's like the loser of town, or the slacker, and his brother's in the military, and he basically gets a heads up, and he calls him, and he's like, you have to prepare. I'm sending you money. Go here, buy all of these things, and I'm sending my family there, and protect them, please. And so he basically goes and goes downtown and has to get all this money out, and the bank's giving him a hard time because he's kind of like, you know, the loser of town. And they're like, what are you going to do with this money? And why are you doing this? And you're giving us a hard time. It's right before 5 o'clock. And he's like, I just need this money because I got to, anyway. So his character arc is he grows into like a leader of the community, and really does end up taking care of more than just his family, like the neighbor ladies, and they really have to survive and deal with bandits and radiation and just all this stuff. And it's a really good story. Okay. It's a standalone. I love it.
I like post-apocalyptic, so I was very curious. So
yeah. It's an oldie but goodie. Like I'm telling you, when I say I've read it, like I've read it more times than I can even tell you. So
okay. All right, I'll tell you some of mine after we get done recording. I'll tell you some of my favorites.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So will we get to see you at any author signings?
Yes, I have a signing in October, which is in Texas, and it's the Traveling Bookshelf.
Okay.
And she used to do that like every year. It was actually the first signing I ever went to that like they had an opening, and she asked me if I wanted to come, and I was like, what, do you want me to come to your signing? Like I was like a little baby author, and I was so excited, and she was so nice to me and so welcoming. And I was just like, wow, like she like set the standard for all book signings. And of course, not all the book signings were like that. And I was like, oh, if only they could all be like the Traveling Bookshelf, you know? And then she stopped a few years ago because she had grandbabies and she wanted to spend time with them. And so anyway, she got back. This is her first year of doing it. So anyway, I wanted to do it, of course, because it's only like 4 hours from my house. And that's about as far as I travel. And so anyway, we're going to be doing that one. I think it's October 5th or somewhere around there. And I don't know for sure, but they've got an Instagram page. So, and then I just signed up for another Texas one, but I'm not supposed to say anything about it yet. Yeah.
In 2024 or 2025?
That one is in 2025 in the spring. And then the next one would be 2025 or no, 2026. And that one's in Tulsa. So,
okay.
Yeah. But other than that, I don't have a ton. I don't really go very far because I don't want to. I'm telling you, I am a homebody. Like I stay at home. So
you go to one, you tell us where you're going to be. We'll figure out if we can make it there.
And I figure, Dallas, pretty much anybody. That's the center of the country. You know, a lot of people can get to Dallas, and it's a big airport.
It's a big hub. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I can do those, and Dallas is 4 hours away. I've done Springfield before, which is a couple hours away, Missouri, and I've done Little Rock, which is like 3 hours away from me. So like within those, and I've done Oklahoma City. So it's like if they're within 2 to 4 hours, it's likely I will go. But if it's like, you know, I don't know, especially those ones I get invitations. They're like, we've got one in Australia. And I'm like, no, thank you. No, I'm not going to try to take all my books. And it just seems like so stressful to me. Like I would love to meet Australian people.
Yeah.
I wish they would just come over here.
Yes. Sometimes they do.
Yeah,
one of our other friends, that's how we met her. She came to Seattle.
Mhm.
But now she's like, you girls have to come here in 2026 to this signing. And I'm like, did you have snakes?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
I'd be in the airplane for how many hours?
Isn't it really hot there?
Yeah.
It is at certain times of the year, but the time she wants us to go, it's in the middle of their summer.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah, it's like, don't you have spiders like this big?
yeah, because she said to
Yes.
me, we were talking about snakes and stuff, and she said something about how because the snake was absolutely huge that I saw in Center, and she's like, oh, wait till you hear about the spiders that eat the birds. And I was like, that's backwards. Shouldn't the birds eat the spiders? But no, apparently they're
Yeah, no, that's terrifying to me. And also that I've seen videos of their kangaroos, and kangaroos are not cute.
mean.
They're scary, and they're all like solid muscle with these like big claws. And I seen this one, and he was just like, there was like this glass window at this person's house, and he was just like throwing himself up against it. And I was like, if that came at my door,
we have a problem.
Weird.
Yeah, it's like Jurassic Park down there. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll try to make it to that one just because we'd be able to say yes, we've done it, but that's a really long ways away. So
yeah, a lot of when you've got kids and husbands and everything, it's difficult trying to coordinate all that.
yeah, my kids are well, my oldest just turned 18, and then I've got a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, so they're getting older where I could run away like in 2026. Mandy's are just behind mine, or kind of sprinkled in there, so they're getting older, we can do those kinds of things, but I don't know. I think my husband would want to go if we went to Australia.
Yeah. See, my husband wouldn't want to go, but he wouldn't want me to be gone that long without him.
Yeah.
So.
He would want to go, but he doesn't want to go to the book signing. He wants to go do other stuff.
He wants to go explore.
Exactly. So
he wants to go check out that spider that eats birds.
yeah. Actually, he wants to go dive with the sharks.
Oh, see?
Dive master. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Let me check your life insurance policy first. Right? Cool. So, yeah. Oh, now the evidence is out there, but okay.
Is there anything else you would like to share that we haven't asked?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't think so. I feel like I've just, been in my own little cave writing and, and reading, and it's like I know there's people out there and they want to know what I'm up to, but sometimes like especially in the summer, like for me, like my daughter's home, and it's just like I turn into mom like the whole time. Like I don't feel like I'm author lady when she's home, and I feel like there's very little time for me to be author lady, so it's almost kind of like I have to like disconnect from the author world a little bit so I can do all this mom stuff with her, because I can't just she needs attention and all that. And so then it's like, by the time fall hits and she goes back to school, then it's like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm gonna write all the books and I'm gonna be a businesswoman, and it's just like, it's just so weird. But I mean, I'm grateful that I can do that. Like I have like the opportunity to like take the summer and just kind of relax and hang out with her and do fun stuff. So as far as writing right this second, I'm not writing anything because I just finished that book. But hopefully I'll start talking about it and sharing teasers and stuff like that. I really think that even if people don't read that kind of like genre, I think they'll like it because it's still like a K Webster book, and there's still like the angst and the emotions and the steaminess that they like. So and it is an age gap because my hero is 40 and the other hero is 18. So
okay. Yeah. Okay. That is an age gap.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah. I feel like you crank out the books fairly consistently. And so I think taking a little break doesn't hurt. It's actually probably good for your mental health. And
well, and anytime I've taken a break, I come back with something really cool. So I needed a break, and I was like, I'm taking the whole month of December off. This was several years ago. And then, so of course I didn't, because then my brain kicked into high gear and I basically wrote my tour in. And so like when I give my brain a break and I stop trying to tell, okay, next we're going to do this, next we're going to do this, this is next on the agenda. If I can just like let my brain do its thing, it works on autopilot and does what it needs to do. And a lot of times those are better books if I just stop trying to force the things that I think I should do.
Right. Okay, well, we're curious to see what you come up with after the summer break then. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. What is the best way for readers to connect with you?
Well, for me, I am most consistent with my newsletter. And so, if they go to my website, authorkwebster.com, sign up on the newsletter, I typically do newsletters every Monday. But again, during the summer, I've kind of taken a little bit of a break. And, but that's where it's like the one place that I can give updates on my life or what I'm working on or new, versions of books that I'm selling or whatever. Like that's my place, and it's just too hard to be all over social media and everywhere in the inboxes, because by the time I do all of that, then I don't have time to write or do anything else. And so I can dedicate a little time each week to update everybody on my newsletter. And then if they want to reply back and say, oh, tell me what about this or blah, 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 that's how I email. I'm old school.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I get it. Like the social media gets hard. It's the two of us running our Bestie Book Reviews email, not just email, but like all of our platforms. And it's a lot, even though we split it in half. So being one person running all the platforms, a lot of work.
Luckily, I have my sister, and so she helps like schedule regular posts that need to go out and things like that. And she'll let me know if there's any like pressing things that I need to go like check on. But for the most part, she's, and she's here all the time in the office with me. And so she'll be like, Christy, did you get this did you get this email about this interview? And I'm like, what? Do I have to read it? And she's like, yes, read it, and I'm like, so, because I like to just go in my own little bubble and do my own little thing. And she's kind of like, okay, Christy, you gotta like get out of your bubble sometimes. And she's very like outgoing and very adulty. Like she's like, we've got to answer all these things and we've got to do all these things. So she keeps me on task.
She keeps you on task.
Yeah.
That's cute. I love that that your sister's able to do that. Like that's great for you too.
Yeah. We love working together. And I mean, like we've just been really close ever since she was born. So, because she's my younger sister, and I mean, we bought some property together with my mom, and so we're hoping to like build houses and have our own little like commune, Yeah.
Oh, fun.
And it's gonna be fun, and we're gonna build like a little warehouse for my book stuff, and we're gonna go work, but we're really just gonna go out there and hang out and drink coffee.
Yeah, make it nice and cozy and just
right. We're gonna put all the work stuff up front and have like a little room in the back where we can be like, we're working. Really
I love that.
Yeah.
Goals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, is that it, Mandy?
That is all my questions.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for being on. Like this was one of our little bucket list things, is getting you in an interview. So thank you.
Well, it was fun, and it's good for me because I like talking to people and I like, getting out there. It's just getting me there is the hard part. But once you get me there, I'm like, oh, let's talk about all the things.
Oh, I can relate. I know what you're talking about. So
that's why I like book signings, because it's like when I finally get there, it's like I get to talk to everybody and I get to go eat lunch with them or go eat dinner, or like my husband always says that I collect all the strays at the signings, because I'm like, you want to go eat with us? You want to go eat with us? Hey, who are you? You want to go eat with us? And so I just like to talk, but it's like
getting you to that
there is the hard part.
Exactly. It really is sometimes. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you guys out there for watching, and we will see you in the next video.